I think the Christian community has a great opportunity today to really help change the climate. You know the myth that the white man is inherently superior to the black man? This myth has plagued us for such a long time.
I was given an assignment by the Lutheran churches of this country to try to create a film that would be helpful in the midst of the counterculture revolution and in the civil rights revolution, and to help the people in congregations the better to understand what the obligations are.
He said, we'd like you to do a film on the church's response to racial tension.
Little did we know at the time that what we were able to produce was actually very stimulating for a time of change.
Black can be beautiful, if it will be. Yes. Black is beautiful if it is striving and developing integrity and developing its mind.
And I think that it was a mirror to a lot of people in our churches and elsewhere, that there was a lot of hidden bias and racial tension and racial discrimination that wasn't on the surface.
If 10 couples would take the time and the trouble to go into a Negro home with a sister church,
I would see an interracial exchange of couples as something sponsored or encouraged by our social ministry committee to actually promote better human relations.
We're not running around proselyting Negro members. We simply want the understanding because of the fact they are in our community.
I said, I don't write scripts. And he said, well, we always write scripts. How will we know what we're going to get for our money? And I said, the answer is you don't know. And I don't know. So that, to me, filmmaking is an act of faith.
In 100 years, the Social Ministry Committee has done nothing, and now we start out with the most controversial issue we could.
Well, Ray, there are many other things we could look for and find to do, but is there anything more important, any problem more crucial right now?
I was sold on the basis of cinema verite, as they called it then, where the camera gets what it can, and then the people who are being filmed become familiar with it, and they see the camera persons who are making the film as a part of their community at the time.
I'm not going to give you a chance to discuss it anymore. I'm simply going to ask you how you vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so tomorrow night at the council meeting, we'll see what kind of reaction we get.
And as a result of that, we felt we got much more honesty than if we'd scripted lines or asked them to prepare certain predetermined statements and all that. And it worked.
I wanted to do a film in the middle America, quote unquote. And we looked around, and I found a minister in Omaha, Nebraska, Bill Youngdahl, and he worked for the Lutheran Church in civil rights. So I thought this guy has, I hope or assume, some sort of an agenda. And he's at a 1,000-member all-white church in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, an all-white church in Omaha, Nebraska, and an active participant in civil rights from Orange, New Jersey. Don't tell me that that's going to just be nothing. Something's going to happen, I'm sure.
What kind of attitudes are you sharing with others, your friends, your children, when it comes to race relations? What is your race relations vocabulary? I've heard so many Christians use the word nigger. By what we say, by how we act, we teach, we witness.
He said, well, I don't know why you want to do a film here. Nothing's happening in Omaha, he said. And I said, I think there is something happening. The question is whether we're noticing it and what we're going to do about it.
That congregation in Omaha, Nebraska at Augustana Lutheran Church, I don't know if they knew what they were getting into, but they were very cooperative and very brave, I must say, in being willing to let the dirty linen hang out, so to speak.
Nice to see you again. The few particulars that make Omaha different from New York are just incidental. The problem exists because white people think they're better than black people, and they want to oppress us, and they want us to allow ourselves to be oppressed.
I wanted somebody who was really going to express the feelings of black people in Omaha. I said, is there anybody in the area that you think can really express what it means to be black in this community? He said, why don't you just go across the street to the barber shop and talk to Ernie Chambers?
You guys pull the strings that close schools. You guys draw the boundaries that keep our kids restricted to the ghetto. You guys write up the restrictive covenants that keep us out of houses. So it's up to you to talk to your brothers and your sisters and persuade them that they have a responsibility. We've assumed ours for over 400 years.
One of the things that's so great about Time for Burning is that it's the first time you're taking inside a black barber shop to see the kind of social discourse that goes on there. Right now, it's a cliche.
Ricky!
What
the hell you think you doing over there?
Hey, look, I'm just trying to get them clean like them Gillette commercials, you know?
But this is one of the first times you got to see something like that. And I thought it was a really shrewd and savvy thing to do. And to do it in a place like Nebraska, which is a very different place from the rest of the country.
Right. Everybody's got something to fight for. Why should he go over there and fight the Vietnamese? They've done nothing to him. Working right in this own country, he can go places and he can't even get in a hotel.
Ever been turned away from a hotel by a Vietnamese? No, by a Chinese? A Japanese? A Korean? A Lebanese? How about a white man? Yeah. Then if we should fight the man who's hurting us, and the white man is one and he lives in this country.
They came to the barber shop because the mayor had been talked to, and he said there's a young, I don't know what he referred to me as, at a barber shop, and if you go talk to him, he will either, he said, curl their hair or straighten their hair. So I think they came down to see me as a curio. That's why people looked at us in those days.
I didn't expect I'd find somebody like Ernie Chambers. One rarely does.
You couldn't walk around and talk to people, stand up in your pulpit on Sunday and preach nice little songs and say, now we're going to give thanks to the Lord for he is good and old Jesus be among us. As far as we're concerned, your Jesus is contaminated, just like everything else you tried to force upon us is contaminated.
The sheer force of intellect, along with that sheer kind of intransigence where, you know, he dared you to take him off his argument. It was just the most exciting thing I've ever seen in my life. You know, this is in the days when, you know, Sidney Poitier was in movies by himself, or you had to be, you know, Jim Brown with two big guns to scare white people. And see this guy, by sheer dint of reason, making this pastor who wanted to connect with him sweat like he was being interrogated was a pretty magical thing to see. And it felt so honest, too, because this is a documentary about a country still trying to find its way with race.
He said there were things he was trying to do to address the race problem. And when he told me what he was doing, it was funny to me. He said, I am the pastor of Augustana Lutheran Church, and there is a black church, and I and the pastor have talked to each other. It's a Lutheran church too, and what we're planning to do is have parishioners in my church meet parishioners in his church in each other's homes and talk and get to know each other. I said, you have no idea of the kind of place Omaha is. There are people who come from the South and find things worse here than where they came from. As mild as this thing is that you're talking about, it's not going to work. You can talk to those racists in your church, and on the basis of what you say to them and what you're talking about trying to do, they'll kick you out of your church.
I think the problem is so bad that we can have no understanding at all.
You think it's gotten to the point where there can never be that reconciliation? Then?
No. And you can accept it or not any way you choose. And for you, this may be an excursion, you know, across the line.
What about the person that wants to listen? I genuinely feel that I want to listen.
Well, if you listen and try to do something, you get kicked out of your church. See, that's the way your people are.
I believe in being a participant observer. I think it's irresponsible of me simply to record what happens in the ostensible cinema verite approach, because that makes the assumption that what happened in front of your camera is truth with a capital T. No, it's the facts of what happened that time, but the fundamental truth about that relationship, that person, was not necessarily revealed in that moment. So here's a sequence I have with Ernie Chambers and Bill Youngdahl arguing over the nature of the church, the nature of black-white relationships, and Bill Youngdahl is brilliant. He's loving, he's caring, he has a comment on everything Ernie says, and they're all good comments, and none of them are in the film. I felt my responsibility was to tell the truth about that moment in time. The truth about that moment in time was not that there were two equally articulate, intelligent, caring people presenting their point of view like a ping pong game back and forth, and one side was as good as the other, more or less. No, that wasn't the truth. The truth was that Bill Youngdahl, because he cared, felt the anger that Ernie Chambers and the pain that Ernie Chambers was representing. And because he felt that, he was uncomfortable and he sweat. So that's what the sequence is about.
God bless you, little brother. Come back and see us again sometime. And don't look back in anger.
Ernie Chambers is a figure out of American literature. He's a figure out of Faulkner. At the time, again, and still in documentaries, it's a rarity to see a composed African-American figure who's not a politician, who's not famous, who hasn't written a book, who isn't published, who can stand and speak his or her mind and have you immediately understand who they are, but also that sense of I will not be moved, I will not be bowed, and not somebody who's looking for a fight, but somebody who creates a space around him by virtue of his intelligence and concentration and says, this is what I think.
One of the interviews or reviews that was given of the film was in Life magazine, and I was described as an astonishingly articulate person. What astonished them was not what I said. It was not astonishing. What I said to them was my ordinary manner of speaking. It astonished them because they have such a low regard and opinion for and of black people.
And that's something we still see in documentaries about African Americans, is that we're the subjects of patronization. You know, we think we can't get through a competently managed day without a social service infrastructure to help us out. And there was nothing like that in this film. These are people who knew what they thought, who knew what they wanted, and said it on both sides, black and white.
Some people in the church, you know, said, well, I'll leave. I'm not going to condemn the whole church. I said, well, the persons who did it are rotten. You know, I'm not going to hide the fact that I think, you know, they're wrong. And, well, they don't belong in, no, I'm not going to say they don't belong in a church, because the church is a place to learn.
Would you join a church where you know you were upsetting the people?
A church isn't really a show place for saints. It's a hospital for sinners. And so if a person hates another person, where is he going to learn the opposite if it's not in church?